The Office is one of my all-time favorite shows, as I've watched it countless times, purchased lots of merchandise from it, and have always wanted to review it for the longest time. However, I could never find out the exact right method by which to review 9 seasons of TV, until I came up with a plan. First is this video, which will cover the first season of the show, which is very different from the rest of the series and more resembles the original British series upon which this one was based. Then I'll review seasons 2 through 5, since that was, in my opinion, the golden era of the show, followed by the slightly more awkward 6 and 7, and finishing with a video about the very odd and often reviled seasons 8 and 9. But first, let's begin where this incredible show kicked off. In comparison to the warm, friendly, character-driven episodes of the following seasons in which almost anything could happen, the first season is much more slow, deadpan, and emotionless. It attempts to transport you into the mundane, somewhat miserable lives that these workers have at such a dead-end job, which is admirable and interesting but obviously jarring when compared to all other eras of the show. The British Office is also just like this, and in fact the pilot is pretty much a carbon copy, which honestly makes it feel pointless. The personalities of these main characters are here, but they're much more muffled, and really the only thing that sticks out at this point is the acting, which is pretty much perfect. Every character may not be that interesting, but the actors do a phenomenal job of trying to liven them up, and it's almost like watching a seed of a character that would eventually become the Jim, Dwight, Kevin, Angela, Oscar, and more that we all know and find hilarious. There is one noticeable difference in the characters though, being Michael. Michael was never necessarily infallible, but he grew, changed, and learned, and all through the later seasons of the show was a likable idiot who we could somewhat sympathize with. However, in this first season, he's nothing like that. Instead, he's a truly despicable jerk who you never want to see succeed. Almost more like a character from Always Sunny. I'm honestly not a fan of this whatsoever. I adore Always Sunny mostly because of those horrible evil people that are the characters, but in a show like The Office there isn't a ton that actually happens. It's mostly about the characters and their back and forth. Always Sunny has tons of insane creative episodes just like Community and many other shows, but The Office is a much more relaxed experience, mostly due to the documentary style, and so it really relies on having hilarious scenarios with great performances and dialogue. There aren't really any characters here with absolutely zero true value, but Michael feels like a copy and paste of David Brent placed into some new scenarios, and it doesn't really work. It's alright by itself, but if you ever watch season 2 onward, you'll see what I mean. I didn't really enjoy the British Office that much when I first saw it either, so that may just be my personal preference. There are some phenomenal jokes, even if some of them are copied from the UK counterpart. Diversity Day and Basketball especially have lots of cringe-worthy lines that actually worked and made me laugh quite hard, even on my 5th time watching. Michael's ignorance is honestly pretty funny due to how everyone reacts to him and how unjustified his confidence in both his humor and knowledge is, but at some points in the first season we don't see truly comedic reactions from normal people, or a satisfying payback. We're just shown bigotry or ignorance and expected to laugh, which is pretty lazy in my opinion. They would later nail this formula and have Michael's stupidity feel so perfect every time a joke was made about it, but they were still finding their footing here, and that's honestly how the whole season feels most of the time. Not a lot happens. This is an incredibly slow season with very little real action, and that's fine, but it also means that at some points it feels totally pointless and misguided. For the original show it was excusable, but here it's not really, because as a new version it needs to have some sort of direction or idea of where it wants to go with the story. Thankfully, it ended up having exactly that starting in the second season, but before that, it was kinda just a messy copy. There are very few episodes in this season, only 6. This is honestly hilarious because the later seasons went up to 28 episodes. but this means that it doesn't overstay its welcome. Having no real through line for the majority of the season isn't too bad when there are only 6 episodes, but at the same time, the whole thing is like some sort of pilot for the true show that began afterward. There is some funny and charming yet realistic banter between all of these characters, and the relationship between Jim and Pam is pretty intriguing from the start, but I find only a few of these scenes truly memorable and amazing. It's alright, just a bit weak. I'll get into the amazing ways in which this series truly succeeds and why it's probably my, if not one of my favorite shows ever when we get to the true starting point in the next part of this review series, but for now, I'll just give you a summary of Season 1. Season 1 is funny, good, and very watchable, but it lacks a large enough number of extremely funny scenes, relies a bit too much on being like the British Office. The main characters don't show as much personality in their dialogue as their acting, which makes it feel disjointed, and the side characters are pretty much nothing but dummies to deliver lines and stand in the background, having almost none of the unique traits that would be shown later on. But this is still really fun, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy watching it. I give the first season of The Office a 3.5 out of 5, but just you wait until I get into the golden age of the show next time around.
I think that pretty much sums it up.